Temtem is unlike any game I have ever played before. Okay, we all know Temtem is basically a clone of Pokemon, but is it really just a clone, or does it actually evolve the monster catching games that we've come to love? My name is ThymeShock, but you can call me Temtem Tamer Trainer Taylor. Yes, that is my official title, and yes, I went to school and got a PhD in Temtem Tamer training, so if you don't call me by my full title, I swear I will cry loudly in public whilst holding your hand, so that's awkward for both you and me. I've pretty much grown up with Pokemon my whole life. I adore the franchise as a whole. I used to watch the anime, collect the trading cards, and of course, I played every single game that came out growing up, but over the years, I've really stopped watching the anime, and I've not really collected a whole lot of cards. I still collect a little, but not a lot, and unfortunately, I felt an incredible lack of interest in the video games as well. I love a lot of things Pokemon has done and continues to do. There's a lot of really cool and creative things that they still do. But if we're being real, the franchise has gotten a bit stale. And this is kind of where Temtem steps in. Temtem unabashedly draws a lot of its inspiration from the Pokemon games, and it copies them so closely that it's astonishing that they haven't gotten into any legal trouble yet. It's really amazing. As a Temtem tamer, Temtem's equivalent of a Pokemon trainer, you are tasked with traveling the world, collecting as many Temtem as you can, as well as defeating dojo leaders, which are like gym leaders, and of course taking down the evil organization standing in your way of being the best tamer, the likes of which have never been seen before. This is nothing new. We all know this storyline. And as you play Temtem, you'll start to recognize an absolute ton of familiar gameplay mechanics, I promise. You'll notice it so much so that if you're a Pokemon veteran, you'll feel right at home with this game. Temtem, however, does have several subtle changes that actually make this game stand out on its own, and in some instances stands above Pokemon in my personal opinion. One of the most exciting things about games like Pokemon for me is the exploration. Luckily, Temtem excels at exploration. The environments are big, beautiful, and varied. One moment you're in a village on the mainland, then the next you're visiting a village that lives on the water, and at some point you actually have to take a gigantic airship to a village that lives amongst the tops of these enormous trees. It is really exciting to adventure out into Temtem, especially with how smooth traveling feels. Instead of having to run into the edge of the water and then having a menu pop up asking if you want to surf or not, you simply just jump on a surfboard and go. You're actually on top of a surfboard, and on top of that, you can always have one Temtem out following you. And if they can fly or float, they will even follow you while you're surfing. This seems like such a small detail, but it makes the world feel just so much more believable and exciting. I love being able to see my Temtem follow me. It's something that I wish Pokemon would do more frequently, but we only see it in games like Pokemon Yellow with Pikachu, or in the Pokemon spin-off thing that I don't even know if it was a spin-off. I didn't get to play it. I just saw other people play it and it looked really cool. Unfortunately, I missed out on it, but the point still stands. I actually still remember the first time I came across another tamer and they had this awesome new Temtem following them that I had yet to encounter, and I was like, I have got to get me one of those. So I highly approve of your Temtem following you. As of right now, traveling can be a bit annoying as there are no running shoes or bikes to make you go faster, and there will be quests you can do that make you go back and forth, and it kind of just feels like a waste of time. But there's some good news, because the devs have mentioned trying to make some of the Temtem into rideable mounts. This is actually the perfect segue into what is arguably Temtem's biggest feature that helps it stand on its own. Temtem is an MMO. This means you can play it alone or co-op with a friend. I mean, seriously, how long have we been waiting for this feature? I've been waiting to catch Pokemon with friends for years, and now I can technically do just that in Temtem. On top of this, you'll run into other online Temtem tamers all over the place who are out doing quests, catching Temtem, or trying on new clothes, because guess what? You can customize your character in Temtem and even unlock more customization options as you play and collect unique dyes and clothing. Why is it huge that it's an MMO? It's because it's going to be frequently updated, and patches have already been pumped out left and right. They could literally take a Temtem that nobody likes and change it to be more lovable. Or they could take one that's just ridiculously strong and tone it down a little bit. I mean, heck, they could legit give a Temtem more evolutions if they felt like it. The devs have been really hard at work making this game balanced and fun for their player base, and it really shows. They've actually been incredibly vocal on social media, which is a really nice sign to see because some people don't interact with their fans or players at all, and it really helps players keep up to date as well as form a sort of bond between the devs and the players, you know? This is one of the biggest and best surprises for myself jumping into Temtem. I absolutely love when devs communicate with and actively participate in the communities. I feel like I've said this a lot in my videos, but it is incredibly important for me. Alright, it's time to talk combat. There is another substantial difference between Pokemon and Temtem, and I've saved this for last because I think this is one of the best changes Temtem has over Pokemon, hands down. For the most part, battles consist each tamer of having 2 Temtem out at a time. I personally like this a little bit more than single battles as it offers more strategy and makes use of more than just one Temtem, which always really baffled me in Pokemon games because it's like, I went through the hassle of catching all these Pokemon, and yet in most situations I can only have one out at a time. I don't get it, but regardless, this battle setup allows for Temtem to literally play off of each other. Some Temtem have moves that gain significant bonuses when paired with another one of a specific type. Also, Temtem don't have PP. Each move costs a set amount of stamina, and when used, your stamina bar depletes. This really makes you have to be strategic when it comes to battling, because if you use a move that costs more stamina than you currently have available, you can still use that move, but it will hurt your own Temtem and make it unable to do anything for the next turn. On top of this, there are moves that can't be used on your first turn, and sometimes you'll have to wait 2 turns or even 3 turns before you can use certain moves. Again, this forces the player to be more strategic in the way they battle, and I love this way more than the combat currently set in the main Pokemon games, because if I'm being honest, the combat in Pokemon has always been my least favorite aspect. It doesn't seem like a massive change until you actually play it and feel it for yourself. The game is actually somewhat challenging, and I got my ass handed to me a few times, which never happens in Pokemon anymore. And the combat animations are really satisfying to watch, and many of them feel really impactful. However, I do wish there was an option to turn off the animations, because once you've seen some of them after so many times, you kind of get the point and you just want the battles to go a little bit faster. As far as I know, that's not an option right now, but it would be a great one to add into the game. Now, Temtem isn't just a superior version to Pokemon. It does, however, suffer from some of the same things that Pokemon suffers from, such as a lot of Temtem being somewhat boring or just flat out uninteresting. I hate to say it, but there are Temtem that are outright lame, and some don't have any evolutions. I give Temtem a slight pass since the Pokemon franchise has had a bunch of uninteresting Pokemon ever since Red and Blue, so while this kind of sucks for Temtem, I get it. It's understandable considering how closely this game follows in Pokemon's footsteps. Luckily, as I stated before, the devs do have the power to make any changes they so choose, so in the future they could potentially rework any Temtem they want. Also, I want to mention that not every single person in Temtem has a desire to be a Temtem tamer. This is weird, I know, but there are a lot of NPC characters that have no interest in Temtem, and some prefer to collect them rather than battle. There is actually even a group of NPCs in Temtem who actively seek to urge tamers to release Temtem back into the wild if they are not using them, and this will reward you for using the release mechanic with rare cosmetic items. Oh, and I nearly forgot. Guess what? You're heavily incentivized to capture all Temtem at least one time, because when you do, you will have their weakness revealed and you can see what traits they can learn, because every Temtem, as far as I know, can learn up to 2 different traits. I love that there's this incentivizing mechanic that tamers can use to catch and release Temtem, and it's kind of small but also neat. It gives you a reason to literally go out and capture everything aside from, oh, I want to have everything. With all of this said, I hope I was able to capture why Temtem has been such a breath of fresh air for me, and why I think you at home might want to give it a try if you're a fan of the genre. Thank you so very much for watching. Until next time, good luck tamers, go out there and catch all the Temtem you can, and remember, I'm the one that taught you everything. I have a PhD. Love me.